"I married you because you were plain," said the Duke of Farncliffe, "and I judged that a plain wife would give me no trouble. I see now I was mistaken in the first, and I begin to fear I was mistaken in the second as well." He said it lightly. That was the thing he would come to hate himself for most, not that he said it, but that he said it lightly, over the breakfast things, with the newspaper still in his hand, as though it were an observation about the weather. Sebastian Crane, Duke of Farncliffe, had been married 11 months, and in 11 months he had grown so comfortable in the ease his wife made around him that he had stopped noticing she was a person who could be wounded. Cordelia set down her cup. For a moment she said nothing at all, and he went on with his newspaper, mildly pleased with himself for the compliment he imagined he had buried in the insult, for he had meant it as a compliment, in his blundering way. He had meant she was handsomer than he had bargained for. When she did speak, her voice was so composed that it took him a sentence and a half to understand what she was saying. "I have wondered," she said, "why you chose me. My father told me it was because your grandmother pressed the match, and I believed him, and I was grateful because I had no illusions about my prospects. I am the fourth daughter of a poor baron. I knew I was plain. I made my peace with it long ago." A pause. "But I confess I had begun to hope, these last months, that there might be some other reason, that you had come, perhaps, to be a little fond of me. It is a great relief to have the matter settled. You married me because I was plain and would give no trouble. Thank you, Sebastian. It is clarifying to know precisely what one is." She rose from the table. "Cordelia," he said, and even then he did not understand, he was half laughing. "Do not be absurd. Sit down and finish your—" "I find I am not hungry," she said. And she curtsied to him, a full, correct, formal curtsy, the kind a woman makes to a stranger of high rank, the kind she had not made to him since their wedding day, and she left the room, and the door closed behind her with the softest possible click, and the Duke of Farncliffe was alone with his newspaper and the first cold intimation that he had done something he could not take back. He told himself she would be over it by dinner. She was not at dinner. A footman brought word that her Grace was indisposed. He told himself she would be over it by morning. In the morning she was gone. She had not fled in any dramatic fashion. That was somehow worse. She had gone properly in daylight in the second carriage, with a maid and 2 trunks and a note left folded on his desk, and she had informed the household in advance so that nothing should be disordered by her going. The note was very short. Sebastian read it standing at his own desk in the gray early light, and read it again, and a third time, as though the words might rearrange themselves into something he could dismiss. "I have gone to my aunt at Netherfold. You need not be concerned for the settlements. I ask for nothing and will make no claim. You wished a wife who would give you no trouble. I mean to be, from this distance, the least troublesome wife in England. Do not follow. There is nothing here for you to want. See." Sebastian Crane stood in his study, 38 years old and the master of 40,000 acres, and discovered that he could not remember how to breathe properly. He had not known. That was the truth of it, and it did not excuse him, and he did not try to make it excuse him. He had not known, until this moment of its absence, how much of the light in his own house had come from her, from the small, unshowy, constant kindnesses of a woman he had been too comfortable to trouble himself to see. He had married her because his grandmother pressed it, and because she was plain and biddable and would not, he had thought, require anything of him. And she had required nothing. She had simply, quietly, made his cold great house into somewhere he wished to be, and he had mistaken that for the natural order of things, the way a man mistakes the sun for a fixture rather than a gift. He rode to Netherfold that same day. He did not send ahead. He arrived mud-spattered and unannounced at his wife's aunt's modest door, and the aunt, a formidable old woman named Lady Prewitt, who had clearly been told everything, received him in a small cold parlor and did not offer him a chair. "She will not see you," Lady Prewitt said. "I must speak with her." "Must you?" The old woman looked him up and down. "You had 11 months to speak with her, your Grace, and you spent them reading the newspaper. What is another quarter of an hour that it should suddenly be so pressing?" He had no answer to that. It was exactly, unbearably the case. He came back the next day. Lady Prewitt turned him away again. He came the day after that, and the day after that, and by the end of the first week, the whole small neighborhood of Netherfold knew that the Duke of Farncliffe was putting up at the village inn, and riding out each morning to be refused at his aunt-in-law's door, and the story of it had begun to be told with a certain relish over garden walls. Sebastian did not care what the neighborhood said. He had stopped, somewhere in that week, being a man who cared what anyone said. He wrote her letters. He did not know he could write such letters. He had never in his life had cause to try. He wrote them at the inn by candlelight and left them with the maid at the door, and he did not know whether Cordelia read them or burned them, and he went on writing them anyway, because it was the only way he had left of speaking to her, and because the act of trying to say what he had never troubled to feel was, he found, teaching him to feel it. In the second week she wrote back, one line in her small even hand, "You are making a spectacle of yourself. Go home." He wrote, "I have no home. I had one for 11 months and did not know it, and now I am a man in an inn. I will stay until you see me or until you tell me to my face that you wish me gone. I will not take it from a note. You gave me a curtsy and a note once before, and I let you go on the strength of them, and it was the greatest error of my life. I will not compound it by accepting another." On the 15th day, Lady Prewitt met him at the door and without a word stood aside. Cordelia was in the small garden at the back of the house, cutting the last of the autumn roses. She did not turn when he came out onto the gravel, though she must have heard him. She went on with the roses, and Sebastian stood a little way off, hat in his hands like a supplicant, and understood that he was to begin, and that everything depended on what he found to say. "I have written you 11 letters," he said. 12, she said to the roses. "The last came this morning." "Then you have read them." "I have read them." She snipped a stem. "You write very well, Sebastian, for a man who spent 11 months unable to think of a single thing to say to me across a breakfast table. It is remarkable what a locked door will do for a man's eloquence." He absorbed that. He deserved it. "I did not know what I had," he said. "I know that is the shabbiest thing a man can say, and I know it changes nothing, and I am saying it anyway because it is true, and I have resolved to tell you only true things from this day, however poorly they show me. I married you carelessly. I lived beside you carelessly. I told you a cruel thing carelessly, and I meant it, God forgive me, as a compliment which is somehow worse. And then you were gone, and the house went dark, and I understood in an afternoon what I had failed to understand in a year, that you were not the wife who gave me no trouble. You were the reason I had come to like my own life. And I had never once told you so, nor thanked you, nor even properly looked at you, and I had called you plain." She had stopped cutting the roses. She stood very still, her back to him. "You are not plain, Cordelia," Sebastian said. "I do not know how I ever thought it. I think a man sees what he expects to see, and I expected a plain, biddable, convenient wife, and so that is what I saw for 11 months, standing in front of the loveliest and kindest thing that has ever come into my house. When you curtsied to me, when you gave me that stranger's curtsy, it was as though I woke up. I have not slept properly since. I do not want to." Now she turned. Her eyes were bright and her chin was up in the way he had come too late to love. "And if I come back," she said, "how long before you are behind your newspaper again? How long before I am furniture once more and the light goes out of the house and I do not even notice because I have grown used to being unseen? I made my peace with being plain, Sebastian. I had not made my peace with being loved and then forgot. It is a great deal further to fall." "Then do not come back for me," he said. "Come back and let me court you, properly, from the beginning as I should have done. I will take rooms at the inn and call on you like any suitor, and I will earn my way back into my own house one visit at a time, and if at the end of it you find me improved, you may consent to know me again. And if you do not, I will settle Netherfold upon you and leave you in peace and count myself justly served." He turned his hat in his hands. "I am not asking you to trust the man who read the newspaper. I am asking you to give the man in the inn a chance to prove he is someone else." Cordelia looked at him for a long moment across the roses. "You may call on Thursday," she said at last. "At 3. You will not stay past 4, and you will bring nothing extravagant, no jewels, no follies. If you wish to court me, Sebastian, you will do it by being a man worth an hour of conversation, since that, it turns out, is the thing you never once managed as my husband." He came on Thursday at 3. He left at 4. He came the following Thursday, and then twice a week, and then more, and the courtship the Duke of Farncliffe conducted of his own wife became, in time, a story the neighborhood told with far more warmth than it had told the first one. He learned her, at last, her wit, her reading, the low music of her laugh, which he discovered he had heard perhaps 3 times in a year of marriage, and now could not do without. He learned to leave the newspaper folded. He learned that a woman who asks for nothing is not a woman who needs nothing, and that the not asking is itself the thing a good husband must learn to hear. It was near Christmas when she consented to come home. He did not sweep her back in triumph. He asked her humbly, on one knee in Lady Prewitt's cold parlor, whether she would do him the very great honor of being courted the rest of the way at Farncliffe, in the house that had gone dark without her. She said she would consider it. Then she smiled and said that she had considered it, and that yes, she would come, on the condition that he understood, now and forever, that she had come back not because she needed a duke, but because she had, against her own better judgment, grown fond of the man in the inn. "I could not want to hear anything more," Sebastian said, and meant it with the whole of himself. They lived a long time after that, and the house never went dark again, because he had learned by hard schooling to keep the light in it lit, to see her every day, and say so, which he did, plainly and often, for the rest of his life. And whenever, in later years, some young husband too pleased with his own comfort was heard to remark that he had chosen a plain and biddable wife who gave him no trouble, the Duke of Farncliffe would fix him with a look that had a good deal of hard-won wisdom in it, and say only, "Take care, sir. Those are the very ones who wake you up, and a man is fortunate beyond his deserving if she wakes him before it is too late to be forgiven."